Thank you, Chairport, members of the committee. My name is Jake Schwitzer. I am the Executive Director of North Star Policy Action. We are a think tank that promotes data-driven solutions to help working Minnesotans thrive. I'm here today to lay out what we know about the Trump administration's impact on Minnesota's economy so far. From trade wars to funding cuts, from inflation to deportation, President Trump's first year in office and his return to office has been a shock to workers and businesses across our state. I'm going to paint a broad picture of his actions so far and what they mean to our economy. But a lot has happened this year, and this testimony will certainly miss things, but I'm going to hit the major points as I see them. Before I dig in, I want to emphasize that much of the impact on our economy hasn't even begun to hit yet. In today's hyperspeed media environment, we jump from issue to issue every day, sometimes every hour, but massive policy changes like we've seen this year take longer than a media cycle to be felt in our lives. Many of the largest changes that were made this year haven't even begun to be implemented in policy yet. And yet, even those that have kicked in take time to reverberate all the way through our economy. For example, tariffs are driving up the cost of building a new home. Minnesota has a housing shortage that hopefully isn't news to anyone on this committee. Fewer homes are being built, and those that are built will cost more to the home buyer. A higher mortgage means less money that a homeowner has to spend in their community, which means local businesses suffer. And the owners and employees of those businesses have less to spend in their communities, and that effect ripples outwards. These ripples take time, but they are starting now, and Minnesotans will be hurt as a result. This week, we received the latest jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the news isn't good. Nationally, job growth has flatlined. From November 2024 to November of this year, the economy added 930,000 jobs. That is the weakest year-over-year job growth into November in at least 16 years, not counting 2020, which is a dramatic outlier caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, the unemployment rate has increased to 4.5%, the highest it's been in over 4 years, again, as we were recovering from the pandemic. Minnesota's unemployment rate is lower than nationwide at 3.7%, but this is a year-over-year increase from 3.1%. Among the largest shocks to our economy this year has been President Trump's dramatic and unpredictable global trade war. In a survey, 89% of U.S. CEOs say tariffs will impact their business performance. 40% of businesses report that tariffs have led to hiring freezes or declines. 67% of small businesses say tariffs have increased their costs. Customs and Border Patrol announced just this week that they've collected $200 billion in new tariffs this year. That's $200 billion paid by American businesses and consumers. That's $200 billion that isn't flowing through our economy anymore, through the businesses in your districts. And that doesn't even take into account the transactions that simply didn't happen because they no longer make business sense because costs have been driven up. Zooming in on Minnesota, 60% of tourism and hospitality businesses in Minnesota say tariffs have negatively affected their business. Border crossings from Canada to Minnesota peak each year in August. This year, we saw 20% fewer visitors crossing the border as compared to last year, the lowest number of crossings since at least 1996. Businesses in Minnesota consistently warn about how our growing worker shortage is holding our economy back. President Trump's violent deportation campaign will only make this problem worse. Although immigrants make up about 1 in 12 Minnesota residents, they comprise 1 in 9 workers, a disproportionate share of the labor force. Immigrant workers in Minnesota construction, health, and childcare are already sounding the alarm, warning that stepped-up enforcement is driving people out of the workforce and out of the state. If President Trump meets his stated deportation goals, this could cost Minnesota 7,000 jobs in the direct care sector, or 12% of the total direct care workforce. This will drive up costs for any Minnesotan who needs the services of direct care staff in their life, which is to say almost every Minnesotan. Research on the impact of deportations in direct care, child care, and construction consistently show that these jobs aren't backfilled by U.S.-born workers. They are simply lost to the economy. As a result of the violent deportation campaign in our state, consumers are staying home. Small businesses are reporting huge drops in customer traffic as neighbors are staying home out of fear of the aggressive enforcement actions taking place every day. You can read it every day in media reports. Carmel Mall is empty. Lake Street is a ghost town. If those businesses are forced to lay off workers, that effect is going to ripple through our economy. If they have to close altogether and stop paying rent, that effect is going to ripple through our economy. In July, Congress passed and President Trump signed his largest legislative achievement of the year, H.R. 1, his budget bill. This bill was a dramatic transfer of wealth from the working class to the wealthiest Americans. If we just look at the tax provisions in the bill, the richest 1% of Americans will see their taxes reduced by more than $91,000 annually. Those in the bottom fifth of earners in the country will see just $160 in annual benefit. Those in the next tier of income, the second poorest quintile, will see just $720. Again, that's compared to $91,000 for the richest 1%. But the real harm in this bill is the cuts. Because of this bill, 180,000 Minnesotans are projected to lose their health insurance by 2034. 106,000 Minnesotans may lose some or all of their SNAP benefits. Almost 6,000 jobs are at risk because of the loss of clean energy tax credits. The wealthiest 1% of Americans will see their incomes rise by 3.9% due to the tax cuts included in this bill. Meanwhile, those in the bottom fifth of earners will lose 7.4% of their income due to cuts in Medicaid, while seeing a rise of just 0.6% of their income due to the tax provisions in this bill. Ordinarily, supporters of cuts that are this harmful justify them as a sacrifice we must make in order to reduce the federal deficit. Not this time. The tax giveaways to the wealthy are so large, this bill will increase our debt by around $4 trillion. It's important to recognize that many of these cuts don't save money at all. They just push the cost off onto other payers. Next year, Minnesotans may pay up to $1 billion more in property taxes, much of that due to inflation, federal spending cuts, and new administrative burdens in programs like Medicaid and SNAP. I stated earlier that the budget bill will drive 180,000 more Minnesotans to lose their health insurance. Those people still need health care. They'll likely seek less preventative care, and that will hurt healthcare providers, especially those in rural Minnesota who are already working under razor-thin margins. But when they have serious needs, they'll still get them taken care of, often in the emergency room. And when they do, someone has to pay for that. We all pay for it. The rest of Minnesotans who are lucky enough to remain insured will see higher costs for our healthcare, which will drive insurance premiums even higher. Minnesotans are paying for it one way or another, but because of this bill, there will be increased human suffering. As I said previously, many of the impacts haven't started yet. The ACA subsidies expire at the end of this month. In 2 weeks, a 60-year-old couple making $85,000 in greater Minnesota will see their premiums jump by 256%, or more than $18,000 annually. I don't know a lot of family budgets that can absorb that kind of hit. New Medicaid restrictions begin later in 2026. Clean energy tax credits end in 2027 and 2028. The economic impacts from this one budget bill will continue to snowball. I'm very concerned about what happens when the hits to our economy keep piling up and we have a severely diminished social safety net to catch those who need support. Economists are clearly worried about federal policy and its impact on Minnesota's economic future. The recently released state budget forecast projects slower consumer spending and a, quote, historically low annual growth rate of business fixed investment. Tariffs, immigration, and increased healthcare costs are cited throughout the forecast of drivers of this decline. I also want to highlight a few non-budgetary concerns for our economy. Artificial intelligence is poised to dramatically disrupt our job market. Our own research at North Star Policy Action from over a year ago found that 500,000 Minnesota jobs are at risk due to AI. That ranks Minnesota as the 10th most threatened state. We're currently working to update that research, and I can only tease it for now, but the numbers are getting worse. Policymakers should be working together to find ways to balance business productivity with worker protections. But President Trump is instead seeking to stop any state from regulating AI at all. The Trump administration is also doing far less than previous administrations to protect working people. A new study this week found that wage and hour penalties have decreased 94% during Trump's second term, and workplace health and safety penalties have dropped 45%. We know wage theft is a disturbingly common crime, so it's concerning to see these critical worker protection enforcement actions drop so steeply. The most immediate threat to Minnesota's economic future emerges from federal policy shifts under the Trump administration. Federal cuts to critical programs such as medical and food assistance, freezes on essential climate infrastructure funding, and efforts to undermine organized labor pose substantial risk to our state's continued economic health. These policy shifts not only jeopardize the security and well-being of Minnesota's working families, but also threaten to dismantle the strong economic foundations we've built over recent years. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.